Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mando and Friends. I'm Mando Fresco, and today is a very, very special day. We have the legendary photographer, director, entrepreneur, Estevan Oriol. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you, man. Thanks for having me down.
Man, I have been looking forward to sitting down with you, man, and having you on Mondo and Friends for a while. You're a legend in what you do, man. I became an even bigger fan when you dropped the documentary in the middle of a pandemic,
Yeah.
LA Originals. So I'm assuming you were working on that for a while.
Yeah, about I think I signed the deal like in the 2017. 2017 or 2018. It took a couple years to edit it because we went to our people here in LA and everybody shot us down, and then we went to a guy from Argentina came up, and he's like the only lowrider in Argentina. His name's Sebastian Ortega, and he owns a production company down there that has the biggest like TV shows running in Argentina, in Buenos Aires. He does a show called El Marinal. He's won a lot of awards. So when I came across him and met him over here, he came up and he had Dickies and a white T-shirt. He was sleeved down, wearing some Chucks, and I was like, man, this guy, he got the look already. He looks cool.
Yeah.
Now look, these other execs from the the big production companies, they look all stiffed out. So then he told me he had a lowrider and he was showing me flicks of it, and he's like, I'd like to bring you to Argentina and maybe do your doc for you. And I was like, let's roll. So he took me down there, treated me good, flew me down first class, got me a cool hotel, and
Nice.
took me to his building, and like I saw the building, I was just like, man, this is the right guy. So, and I seen the way everybody treated him and how he treated everybody. He was real respectful and cool with everybody, but at the same time, he was still a boss. So I was like, this is the dude that we got to roll with. So I told Cartoon, I was like, hey man, I think I found us a home for the doc.
Yeah.
And we took all the footage down there, and I went down there and met his team, and he put like 3 editors on it, and they were just banging stuff out, and got it to a point where they could show it to Netflix because most of his stuff is with Netflix, and Netflix in Argentina or maybe Latin America or whatever, they liked it and they were going to put it out, and I guess they showed it to the home base here, the
Yeah.
headquarters, and they ended up wanting to pick it up. So originally we were supposed to do the film festival circuit, and we had Netflix hooked it up to where we were going to headline one night at the film festival at South by Southwest, and then Spike Jones was going to headline the second night.
Wow.
But they were going to play our movie during the day too on that day. So we had the only film that was going to play 2 days in a row. And a week before we were supposed to go to South by Southwest, Netflix was the last company to pull out of the festival. Everybody had pulled out because of COVID, and Netflix was like the last ones. And all the homies, we had like 20, 30 people going out there with us. They're like, hey, what do we do with the Airbnb and our plane tickets? And I was like, I don't know, like, you want a note from me or what? Like, I don't know what to tell you, man. Like, I never been through this before.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm sure they're not going to burn you because shit is going crazy right now. It was like right when it hit, and like every big brand was pulling out of South by Southwest. It's
Yeah.
never happened before. So it was kind of like like putting the air out of the balloon, for
Yeah.
me. Because, if you're a filmmaker, like your dream is to go to film festivals and like win them and be there with other big, films
Yeah.
and, that whole
For
industry.
sure.
and then they say, oh, your big day is, gone, canceled. So I was like, man, like, go figure, And then people are like, oh, don't trip, everybody will watch it now. Now nobody can go outside, so everybody's gonna be watching Netflix. And at that time, they had the Tiger King.
Yeah, Tiger King was like the biggest thing on
Yeah, he was
Netflix. Yeah.
huge. But at the same time as everybody had already seen it, everybody had already binge watched it, and it was kind of over. And I was like, they're waiting for something. What's next?
Yeah.
And like our documentary dropped, and it started trending and started, making it in the charts. It went from 10 to 8, back down to 9 to 7 to 5 to 6. It just kept going in the top 10, and we were like, damn, we're in the top 10. And then for documentaries, it made it to like number 1, but in all the way across all the movies, it went to number 4. So like, we're like, it didn't work out with the film festival circuit, but it worked out in the top 10 in the Netflix, so that was cool for us. Then, I getting like hundreds of texts and phone calls and DMs, like people I haven't talked to in 20 years.
Wow.
Hey man, it's just saw the movie. Congratulations. And it was like overwhelming,
Yeah.
My phone was just going crazy.
It's like your birthday times 100.
Yeah, 1,000. I was like, damn, man, like, but I answered every single person back.
Man.
I was grateful, that everybody sat down and took an hour and a half out of their life to watch something I did, and they took the time to, write me a message. So I wrote back to every single person that emailed me, texted me, DM me, whatever, I know I missed, how on the DM it lasts for 24 hours if it's to your, to your message or whatever.
Yeah.
So I was hitting people back, and they're like, thanks, bro. That was 3 weeks ago. I go, yeah, it took me this long to get to you, Like, I've been going to everybody. And, but it was cool, That was, like, one of the best experiences in life to date, So that was a game changer for us.
Would you say that film portrayed your life's work accurately?
No, I'd say it was like a highlight reel.
A highlight reel.
Yeah, because, originally we wanted like a 4-part series so we could go in depth and really get that, get that life story type of deal. But you try to chop up, 25, 30 years of your life and career into 90 minutes, it's hard,
Yeah.
And you have to divide that between me and Toon, so that's like 45 minutes each. Do your whole life story in 45 minutes is, I mean, I guess it's enough time, but you don't really get to get into it, go deep into it.
Now, for those that don't know, about Estevan, the legendary Estevan Oriol, he's photographed everybody and their mamas. Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Kim Kardashian, Kanye, Snoop Dogg, Floyd Mayweather, Lance Armstrong. I mean, you name it. If they're public figures or celebrities, they're doing something. This man in front of me has worked with them. I want to go back to when you initially started. You were a tour manager initially for House of Pain and my hometown heroes in Southgate, Cypress Hill.
Yeah.
Tell me, man, how from that to photography, I also know your pops, the legendary Heriberto Oriol, gifted you a camera.
Yeah.
So can you take us back to where your career initially kicked off?
It started with, I want to say it started in the late 80s. In the late 80s, I met Muggs, DJ and producer of Cypress Hill. I used to work the doors at clubs, and I bought a lowrider in 1989, which was I bought a car, a '64 Impala. Shortly after that, me and Muggs became friends. He took me down to the Cypress Ave like in '89. I met Sen and B right there on Cypress Ave, and I started working on the car like in '91. So doing construction all day, working the clubs at night. I was scraping, getting by, and then Muggs was like, "I got a job for you." This is in '92, and he says, "I want you to tour manage a group called House of Pain I have, these white boys." And I was like, "Okay," and there was like at that time there wasn't very many white guys in hip hop.
Yeah.
There was Deborah Harry. She's one of the original, rappers back in the day. And then there was Third Base and Vanilla Ice. And I
Yeah.
was like, in my head, I'm, within seconds, I'm like, what kind of person is, and there was Everlast from Rhyme
Everlast.
Syndicate. So I go, who could this be that he's talking about? Some new kids or somebody, somebody else. And he goes, House of Pain, and it's Everlast, and he has two other people that he's rolling with, and it's like Irish dudes. I was like, okay, I get it. Like I know that Everlast could rap his ass off
Yeah.
from the Syndicate, and I know him from when he used to come to the clubs. And at the same time, I was working on my car, so my pops was like, "Hey, you have this cool lifestyle going on. You're building your lowrider in East LA. You have your car club, and you're going on tour with this group, and their song "Jump Around" is taking off. Like you should be taking photos of all this. This is good, like good material here." And at first, I kind of was like not into taking out a camera because it wasn't cool. It was like if you weren't a professional with a camera and getting paid, you were like either like a hobbyist or a paparazzi or a tourist.
Yeah. Yeah.
And people just look goofy carrying around cameras back then. You had a strap and it's a big old clunky thing. It's like to me, the guys with the big gold chains, and the diamonds and everything,
Yeah.
they
Yeah.
look
Yeah.
goofy. Having these big things on them. And so I felt like that. You know that I looked kind of weird with this big old camera. So I never had it on me. I would just carry it low key. And if there was something cool, I'd take a picture here and there. But then I started getting more used to taking it out and talking to people and having them get comfortable, because at first, as soon as you pull out a camera, people are like, oh, okay, I got to change, like
Yeah.
I can't be me no more.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, it wasn't that type of thing, like now, everybody's used to some photos or getting filmed or,
Especially with like
you drive down the street and you'll see people with like a portable stand with the O-ring light, and they're over there TikToking by themselves on the street. I'm like, look at like how far it's come,
Yeah.
Like every single thing has been photographed, every single thing is being filmed, and it's crazy now.
Yeah.
But back then, it wasn't cool. Like if you had a camera, especially like in a hood or something, people are like, "Are you a cop or what are you doing? What are you taking those pictures for?" Or what are, they had all these questions.
Yeah.
Like, no, it's none of that. It's just I just like taking pictures. So that's how it all started. Taking pictures of the lowriders and all the homies that were around in that scene, and then taking pictures of the hip hop world because, I was in it. I was working with the band every day. 24/7. I was either low riding or in hip hop. So I just started taking pictures of all that, and little by little, I learned how to hustle those photos into magazines through the magazines that would come and interview Cypress or House of Pain. Or I had a Japanese homie in our car club. He had a friend that did a magazine called Fine back in the day that had like all kinds of culture, like low riding, hip hop, punk rock, skating, surfing, a little bit of everything in this magazine. It's kind of like their Bible
Yeah.
of culture. and they asked my Japanese homie to send them Japanese or low riding pictures to Japan, and he was like, "I'm not interested. I just build low riders, but I know a guy that can do that." So I started taking pictures for them, and we had our own little section in there. We did it every month. It was called Low Life for Lowrider Lifestyle, and right away I was working. Doing a low riding section in a magazine. Then I was doing hip hop articles for hip hop magazines because of the House of Pain.
Tell me about tell me about your PhD.
My PhD stands for Push Here Dummy, and I got that from my boy Ricky Powell. Rest in peace.
Yeah.
I heard him say it one time, and I was like, "Hey, can I run with that?" He goes, "Yeah, man, go ahead, take that. I'm good." So I was like, I try and throw it in there here and there, but he was the king of it, and that's it. I just learned how to do my photos that simply.
I like that.
It's
PhD. Push here, dummy.
Yeah, I was like, my dad, my whole photography, education was my dad
Yeah.
showing me the camera, and there was two pins that lined up inside. You turn the speed of the frame and the shutter speed, and you line up those two knobs on the camera and the lens, and when the two pins inside line up, then it's ready to shoot. So then push here, dummy, and you focus, and you get the shot. So that him explaining that to me the same way I explained it to you
Yeah.
was my total introduction to photography, and I just ran with that whenever I felt was cool and comfortable, and shot pictures here and there until I became more comfortable with it, and then I shot more and then started working, and it took off from there.
Your father, Heriberto, he was a photographer, very well known in Los Angeles. He photographed like Los Angeles culture and uh, the homelessness that was happening. I mean, it's still happening now, but
Yeah.
back then, was it like 80s back then or
Um, he started in the 70s.
70s?
He's from San Diego, and he used to work at a place called the Chicano Federation, which was in Chicano Park in Logan Heights. So they were like an activist group, and they did stuff for the community and the culture, and he would try to ask people that he knew that were photographers to come and get these certain shots of this or that. And sometimes people couldn't show up, so he went and bought a camera and started shooting it himself. And through that, he fell in love with taking pictures and was shooting like lowriders and shooting all kinds of different scenes down there. And then he moved up here, and he stayed down there in Skid Row and started taking pictures of that, and um, just went from there into painting. And at the point when he gave me the camera, he was kind of burnt out on photography. He was like, "Hey man, I'm more into painting. You should try this
Do
out.
something with
It's
this.
cool, yeah."
Yeah.
So that's what I did, and then I think it was like the early 2000s. Shepard Fairey asked me to do a show at his gallery. It was on top of the Wiltern Theater, and
Obey.
yeah, I wanted to do a show, but I didn't want to show my low riding and homies stuff anymore. I was kind of burnt out on it, and it was either early 2000s or late 90s, and I go, I don't know if I want to do a show of that stuff anymore. And he goes, well, that's kind of the stuff I wanted to, to show. And I said, how about we do a show, but it'll be like a father and son show. And my dad will show his cool street stuff, and I'll show mine. And he was like, I love that idea. So then later on we revisited that and we did our own show called Like Father Like Son
Yeah.
at the Carmichael Gallery in Culver City, and then we did it at the Carmichaels moved from L.A. to New York. We did a show there, Like Father Like Son, and then we did another one at the Dax Gallery in Costa Mesa, and that was a cool little run. It's always cool to be able to do stuff with your family,
For sure.
and especially I thought it was unique that me and my dad both take pictures of like kind of similar,
That's what I was gonna
but
ask you.
not. And then he's still alive.
Yeah.
So like usually it's like you'll see something like that, but the father had passed away or something. So me, I'm all about giving flowers to people while they're here, like and while they're gone. I'll keep people's memory alive as long as I'm here if they're close to me. So um, I just thought that'd be a cool project to do with my pops, and you know, we've been working together for years
That's
now
beautiful.
with through photography.
Your dad found beauty in dark places.
Yeah.
I believe in many ways, you have been able to to do that yourself. Um, would you say your style is similar to his, or was it influenced by his?
He definitely is like my main influence, but his style is shooting from a distance, and mine's up in your face. Like he wasn't really, you know, like right there, like within few feet of people. He'd be like across the street. He was more like a kind of like a documentarian, like that style of photos. Like he'd just be like it was more like the street scene. Whereas I would go up to a character and say, "Hey, is it cool if I take a picture of you and take like a portrait of them?"
Yeah.
So it was the same genres but different approaches.
Would you say that the photo that you've taken, like the LA, is that your most famous photo that you've taken? You like most known, I guess, or which one would you say is the most known photo of yours?
Yeah, I would say that one for sure. It's because it's been it's probably the most like worldwide photo I have out there, and the most used and abused and molested photo I have. And it's like it's a double-edged sword, like
Yeah.
a blessing and a curse. It's like it's been it's done the coolest things for me, and then like the most people ripped it off and burned me, and they're like, "Well, you didn't make up that sign." And I'm like, "Yeah, you're right, I didn't." But I'm the one who fought for it for 25, 30 years with that photo, and I put that shit worldwide. Like people were just doing it in like the people that were doing it were like gang members,
Yeah.
like or people in like the hip hop scene, or you had to be from LA, like really living that, because there was consequences behind it.
Man.
Like if you're throwing up in LA, you know, what do you? It's not like now, like people will throw up the name of their companies, like in a photo, like if they're doing Mando and Friends, they'll be throwing up a M and a F,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
in a photo, like that represents their company.
Yeah.
But you were throwing up LA to represent your city or the type of culture you're from, and there was people that weren't cool with that. You automatically had people that were hating on you. If you're from LA, throwing up in LA, people from up north would be like, "Man, those guys, they're from down there," or a cop would be like, "Oh, they're throwing up a gang sign,"
Yeah.
or or a gang would be like, what's he throwing up, like what, is it a because there's different neighborhoods that might have a L and an A in it.
Right.
So now it's to the point where white kids are throwing it up in different parts of the world.
Yeah.
Like H&M made a shirt out of it. I think they're from like Sweden, and they're making an LA Fingers shirt, or Brandy Melville or Hot Top or not the other one, another store was making it in their
Yeah.
shirt. And I'm like, damn, like they wouldn't have been doing this if it wasn't in 100 magazines that were all about me and about the city, where the magazine would say, send us 10 of your photos. And I would send them that one as one of my photos. And that was part of the article every time. And those magazines were from all over the world. Like
Yeah.
a German magazine would be like, yeah, Estevan, we want to do an interview on you. And can you send us 10 pictures? And I would send them that, and 9 other ones.
When was that photo taken? And
In
where was that photo
94,
taken?
over here, down by the LA River on the other side.
In 94?
Yeah. So,
Wow.
like, picture I've been pushing that photo this many years all around the world. Whereas if it was up to just a couple people in LA throwing up the sign, nobody would really know about it,
Right.
It'd be
How do you remember that moment when you were putting like the photo together and
no, it was nothing really. It was no big deal. What happened was, like, most of my photos were like a scene, like a scenario, like a car on a corner. I would see like a cool car by like a liquor store, and there'd be somebody by the payphone and something like that. So most of the shots that I had were like wide shots, they like pulled back, or they were like close-ups of people, like just a person. And I started getting the magazines back and looking like, yeah, these are cool pictures that I'm sending them, but it needs to be broken up. So they're like, send some lowrider pictures. I'd send them like a picture of like a custom dash, like with a custom steering wheel.
yeah.
Then I'd send them a picture of the car, like a profile view of the car, like the front of the car, and then like a rim. And if they say like send pictures of people you shot, I'd send like a picture like their belt buckle, whatever it said on their belt buckle, like their neighborhood or whatever, the old school military with the letters, or send pictures of like, people standing with their Cortezes, like
Yeah.
that. And then I had that one. So I would send pictures of different like low riding and neighborhood shots. And then that would be one of the detail shots. And I noticed that people were really taking a liking to it from other places, because you're always, it seems like when you're like an artist, you're always more appreciated outside of where you're doing it.
Yeah.
So everybody would like that picture. They would start putting it on covers of magazines in the 90s.
Wow.
So one of the magazines that first put it up here, the first like, had my back, was Big Time magazine. It was an old graph magazine. And they put it on the cover, and then it went to magazines abroad, where they were putting that on the cover. And I would be like, damn, why are they putting up an LA picture on the cover of their magazine in a foreign country? Like, I was like, because it must be that powerful of a shot, So,
And back in the 90s too, hip hop culture, Chicano culture was blowing up. I went to Japan in like 2006, 7,
yeah,
and there was a huge Chicano lowrider culture in like Tokyo, in different parts of Japan. Dickies,
yeah.
and like the whole thing, man. Lokes, like, and this was in the 2000s already.
Yeah, that magazine, Fine. They were like the Bible to the youth. And like there was some lowriders that would, they've been shipping lowriders over there since the 80s.
Yeah.
So people are like, like Vice magazine will send some millennial to Japan and goes, guess what? They're doing lowriding in Japan.
Yeah.
It's 2020. Or like, homie, you were like not even
Bored.
they've been having lowriders over here. So, it's cool that they keep the culture out there, and they
Yeah.
have to do it through the youth. I get that. They have to have a millennial tell the story so that other youth will, pick up on it. But like my boy Oishi, he's been shipping lowriders out there for years. I have another friend, Tanaka Shoichi. He was the first one that took our clothing. We had a store on Melrose called Supermax. Me and Big Lucky. Cartoon did all the designs. That we opened that one on 92. We had our own like homie store right there, selling Dickies, Cortezes. Cartoon had done like 10 designs. We were selling, graffiti cans. We were selling House of Pain and Cypress Hill merch in
So
there.
you know all about Greenspans then.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We had like a kind of like a Greenspans type of vibe
Yeah.
in Hollywood on Melrose.
That's dope, man. So
Yeah,
for those that
in
don't know,
92.
about Greenspans, do you mind?
Greenspans. I always have my friend Josh Greenspan tell the story. It's about a 4-hour story. I always say, Josh, tell him about your story about Greenspans, and it's a good 4-hour story, but I have him do the short version in like 30 minutes. But basically, Greenspans opened, I believe, in Watts in 1926. I want to say, and there was a lot of Jewish people in that area, and then something happened with the. Well, they kept that store, and I think they opened the one on Tweedy and Southgate,
Yeah.
and they ended up closing that one, and then they moved everything to Southgate or something like that, and but Greenspans has been around for 95 years now,
Wow.
so they're OG, like
Yeah,
for
man.
real OG. They had all the old Cascade shirts. For those that don't know, they're the Bumblebee shirts. They're now called FB County shirts. And then they've been selling, all the cool old school Picos, or the ones with the fur on the collar, and they're
Yep.
like wool jackets, and uh, all the coolest Dickies, Carhartt, 501s, um, old school Stacy Adams shoes, the fedora hats.
They
They've
sold
been
zoot suits back in the day.
zoot suits, like anything cool and old school. Greenspans was the place to go. So we love what they were doing so much, but there were, you had to go to like Bell, uh, the store over there off of Figueroa, and right there by the stadium.
Yep. Yep.
There was a store there that had like, it's kind of like a swap meet store. And then there was Greenspans, and there was, different swap meets, Lawson, that kind of stuff where you can go get your tees, your tank shops, your Cortez, your Dickies, your 501s. But there wasn't really too many of those places over here.
Yeah.
So we opened a store called Supermax, and that's how that started. Well, my boy Tanaka Shoichi, that he's, one of our Soul Assassin crew from Japan, he came over in 92 and was taking our stuff over there. Then me and Big Lucky started Not Guilty clothing in 94. Then we got Joker in 95, and he was shipping all those clothes out there back then. So we've been out in Japan since 92. And my first trip to Japan was with House of Pain to do a show. So, our whole culture's been out there way before that, but, we did a good little push out there with our stuff.
When you went back in '92, were you already seeing like LA culture being reflected in Japan?
A little bit, not so much. But by the time we started doing our article, Low Life in 94, it started picking up. Like we were in there with Supermax in 92. Back then the clothing lines were like Fresh Jive, Con Art, uh, Tribal, and Supermax. We're going in those years, and we were the ones that were in the Fine magazine before. So like in '94, everything was on. Uh, everything, the ball was rolling already, And that's when we started putting in the lowriders in the magazine. And they had this cool little thing at the end of the magazine. They made like these cassette tape covers. They'd put 4 on a page, and I used to get excited when they'd put my photos on the covers of those. Like people made their own mixtapes.
Yeah.
They'd cut out the cover from the Fine magazine and put it in their cassette. So I was like, damn, that's pretty cool.
Speaking of lowriders, I've heard you say, "I am a lowrider." Can you
Yeah.
tell me a little bit about that?
Yeah, I've invested thousands of dollars, real blood, real sweat, real tears into lowriding, and gotten a lot of fights with my family over it, and I've made it a priority sometimes when I shouldn't have, but that was what I was doing. I'm a lowrider, so I was like, sorry, we can't get that because the car got to get this. So with like in our car club, we used to have a saying, the chrome bill before the phone bill, meaning like, the car comes first, everything else. So, there was a lot of divorces in our car club and a lot of, family issues in our club, but it was fun, man. And I wouldn't change, nothing. Like
You
they
s-
say, no regrets.
you're still about that life. Like I heard that you still roll through, all over LA.
I'll be at the Hot Wheel car show on Saturday
Oh, nice.
with the car that I bought in '89. So
Wow.
I'm still doing it.
What's your most, might be a difficult question, but what's your most precious lowrider that you have?
It has to be that one. It's called Blue Velvet. It's a blue 1964 Chevy Impala SS, and I've redone it maybe 4 or 5 times. Completely new paint, new interior, new stereo, new hydraulics. I'm just redid it again. Put some disc brakes, fuel injection, new stereo again, new interior, and it's a constant work in progress. And it's like it's a piece of art that's rolling around that represents you. You curated everything. Like, yeah, I don't turn every single wrench, or I'm not the one welding the frame for the hydraulics or making rims or anything like that
Yeah.
or painting it, but I'm the curator of it. I picked this guy to do the interior. I picked this guy to paint it. I drove the car there. I drove these parts here. I drove the car there. Not to mention I had to make all the money to do all that. But it's a nightmare. Like low riding is probably one of my biggest nightmares in my life. Shit that goes on with these fucking cars. Like I just took another one up to Palm Desert like 2 weeks ago, and the car didn't start. It was on the grass, laid on the floor,
Yeah.
and uh, it was on a golf course. They want us to show these cars on a golf course. So this car was laid on the floor and it wouldn't start, and the sprinklers turned on.
Oh,
So I'd spent like $200 getting somebody to detail it, put it on a lift, scrubbing it with a toothbrush, and the sprinklers turned on and hit on my whole detailing. Then it was on a golf course, so we couldn't get the tow truck in there to flatbed it home. So I had to get my truck and these straps, and we had to do all this shenanigans. And that was like, we were like, oh, cool, man. That only took 5 hours. Like, we changed the coil, we put gas in it and all that crap. And then ended up having to tow it out of there with my work truck to the tow truck to take it home. And I'm thinking like, okay, it's 12 o'clock. Oh, there's no restaurants. We haven't eaten since breakfast. Another day of low riding. And the 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 room service was going to close in 5 minutes. We hurried up and ate, went to bed. We were exhausted from 2 days of dealing with the low riding crap. And I get 5 texts from the tow truck driver when I wake up. And I was like, this isn't good. There's no way.
yeah.
Something happened. I look, and there it is. The 5 photos. Hey man, sorry, but you know, it wasn't my fault. And I'm looking at it, and the visor of because it was a bomb, it was a 48 Fleet Line. The visor, I guess because of the way it was on the tow truck, the visor was straight up, you know, because the car
Oh
was
yeah,
at a
yeah.
bend. So it wasn't like this. The visor was like that. So the wind was hitting it.
Oh,
And you know, driving from Palm Springs to LA,
I bet the
there's those
freeway.
sections where the freeway gets super windy. I guess the wind had caught the visor and blew it
No.
off, but it blew off only one side, so it was just blowing around and like hitting the car. Like, you know, it was stuck on one side and it was just blowing around, hit the hood, hit the fender, hit the roof, hit the door, hit the other door. I'm like, I can't get a fucking break, you know? So that's what I mean when I
What
say,
was the damage on that?
oh, I can't even fucking look at it. I'm so sick. You know, like I looked at it, I was like, okay, I'll deal with this in a couple weeks. Like I don't even want to get depressed right now, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, that's when you say I'm a lowrider. Like I didn't buy a lowrider at the car shop where I have a lowrider, or I didn't, you know, just buy it and turn key and just drive it home. Like I really put a lot in the cars, like way more than that's it's worth, you know. But if you are a lowrider, that's what you do. You get, you know, sucked in. You're deep in there, and you feel it every time. Like something happens, you're like, "Welcome to lowriding." You know,
Yeah, yeah,
like people don't know.
yeah.
They think we're just driving these cars around. Like, you know, like you can go buy a Lamborghini.
Yep.
You turn the key and you drive off, and you're cool. Your hair's blowing in the wind, and everybody's giving you a thumbs up. But you know, you had to earn that $300 to $1 million to have that car.
Man.
But we get the same attention as those cars when we're on the street because we have one of ones. But people don't know. Yeah, we didn't spend 300 grand on it, or up to 1 million, whatever. But we put that in through blood, sweat, and tears.
Yeah.
You know, so that's where that comes from.
There's a lot of celebrities that are into low riding. Is there one that you think respects the low riding culture the
Um,
best in your eyes?
well, definitely Snoop Dogg respects it, and he knows it. He's been doing it for years. Mac 10 is one of the first ones that I know in my camp. Of course, Be Real and Muggs and Sen have all had lowriders,
Yeah.
so they go without saying. I'm talking about outside people that I'm not on the daily basis with. B was in our car club. He had a '57 Bel Air. He had a '65 ragtop. He has a Cadillac now and a glass house now that he does the smoke box in. So he's in it, you know. And Sen back in the day had a Regal, like a '85 or '86 Regal. It was red. And then Muggs has had a '63 rag and something else. I can't remember all these
I
cars that
know.
we've had, but in our crew we've had lowriders since the gate. But Mac 10 was one of the first rappers that I seen that wasn't outside of our crew, that wasn't renting a car, and he knew how to hit the switch
Yeah.
from the door. He'd get back bumper. And like I was doing a thing for our magazine, a lowrider piece, and I hit him up and I was like, hey, you know, can we see you hit the switch? And he grabbed the door and started hitting it. Like within a couple licks, he, you know, back bumpered it. I was like, damn, get down, Mac 10, you know? I was like, that's right. So he was one of the first ones that I seen that wasn't renting lowriders. Because
Yeah.
to me, if in the 90s, all those dudes that were in lowriders, they were mostly Raza cars that were rented for the videos, you know? And I
Yeah.
thought, like, man, that fool should be, they're rap stars. They should be having their own cars. Why don't they? You
Yeah.
know, like, this is LA. They're singing and rapping about driving around in a Lolo, but they don't own one. They're renting it from the homie. You know, like, it didn't make no sense to me. But when I seen like Mac 10 out there, and then Snoop started buying rides, and even now to where the younger generation has them, like Ty Dolla,
Yep.
YG, um, um, Schoolboy Q has
Schoolboy Q.
one,
Yeah.
and then DJ Mustard has one,
Yep.
and
I know the late Kobe Bryant, the
yeah,
late and
Kobe
great
Bryant had
Kobe.
one.
He had one.
So there is some people that are in the so-called, in the industry that have lowriders, which is great.
Did you ever see Kobe in his lowrider?
Never, I never saw him in it, but I saw the car. Um, yeah, I never got to see him in it. But I'm coming out with a book on lowriding. It's like 25 years of lowriding worldwide, and it's all my photos from all over the world. Every time I've ever incorporated a lowrider in a photo shoot that wasn't about lowriding, that I wanted to expand lowriding in different genres and in different countries and stuff like that. So I'm gonna have all that in the book, all the lowriding within my own family, within my car club family, and just being out in the streets, Whittier Boulevard, Hollywood Boulevard, Crenshaw, all that type of stuff, all the car shows in Elysian Park, um, of course, Azalea Festival.
Oh
That
yeah,
was one of my favorite car shows.
Azalea and Southgate. Yep.
Yeah, and the super shows, of course, when it was on a cracking in the 90s. So that's going to be that book.
Does that book have a name yet?
I think I'm just going to call it Lowriding Worldwide.
Do we have an approximate release date?
I have two books coming out before that, which one is on tour, which is, me on tour with Cypress Hill and all that, because I'm doing a documentary with them for Showtime that's
Oh
supposed
yes,
to come out on 420.
I heard.
So I want to have a book around that time to, shoot out with that movie. And I also have LA Woman 2. 'Cause my first book was LA Woman, and that book sold out in like 2 years. And everybody loved that book. And they keep asking me to reprint it, but I'm like, I still have enough photo shoots of women where I could do a whole new one.
Yeah.
So kind of like you slept on the first one. Sucks for you, but I got something for you. And then the touring book, and then the low writings after that. So
How many books have you released now?
published 5 books right now
Five books.
to this day. Yeah,
Mm,
it's L.A. Woman, L.A. Portraits, 1979, which is a basketball book I did with Adidas. Then This is Los Angeles. And the one I was signing, I was late today because I was signing 250 books. It's called Bosozoku. It's on Japanese motorcycle, cruise. So I'm up to 5 solo books, but I've been in maybe 15 more, like group books.
That book released this year, Japanese biker gangs.
Yeah,
What can you tell me about that book?
that book. When I went out to Japan, um, with the House of Pain,
Yeah.
I met a photo agent there. He's from Australia. His name was Peter. He had a company called August, and they represented all the big photographers in Tokyo. And somebody told me, "Hey, you should, invite my friend to the show. He's real cool, and maybe he could help you with your photography." And I was like, "Yeah, okay." So he goes, "Take some pictures." So back then they had these things called portfolios, and it was like a book that I had made like 40 prints at the photo lab, and I took this book and I showed it to him, and he was like, "Hey man, I would like to try to represent you over here and be like your photo rep." And I was like, "Great, like if I can get some work outside of tour managing as a photographer on my time off, that'd be great." So he got me some jobs, and in Japan, I would call him up and say, "Hey, Peter, I want to come to Japan for like a month." And he'd go, "Okay." And he would set up to where he would just start getting me album covers, magazines, video shoots, like campaigns for clothing brands. And I'd come home with, a couple stacks. And I'd be happy. And then I would take out music groups that we'd work out there with and get them shows, like little independent shows and put them on. So now they're international, rap groups instead of just here. And then we did our first art show, me and Cartoon, in Harajuku on across the street from Kittyland in Japan. I think it was 97.
Wow.
It was called Sex, Money, and Murder. And it had like all the cartoons, artwork, and my photos. Um, and that was like one of the things that we did with Peter. And then while I was out there one time, he saw like what we're into with the lowriding. He goes, "Hey, there's these bikers out here that they're kind of like biker gangs, like crews of from different parts of the city, and they customize bikes, kind of like you guys do lowriders. Would you want to shoot that?" I go, "Yeah." So I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but he was like, "We just drive around." And they come out on the weekends, and there's like anywhere from 20 to 100 to maybe more of them, and they just drive around the city, and the cops chase them. And
the cops chase him.
yeah, and so I was like, "Well, that sounds cool," that. And he was like, "The bikes are a lot like the cars. They have the big flake paint jobs, they have the pinstriping, they have murals, and they customize them." Kind of like you guys do. Like they customize the seats, like so they're doing their own interior.
Yeah.
They're doing their color combinations on the bikes with pinstriping and murals on the gas tanks or murals on the side plates and murals on the helmets even. And they make the helmets match the paint job on the bike. So I was like, damn, that sounds crazy. So sure enough, we went out one night and we saw them. Because there's no like back then there's no internet, so you couldn't see like a flyer like, "Hey, we'll be driving around all these different neighborhoods. You might catch us at this one light at this one time." There wasn't none of that. So you just drove around and you might see one bike and follow him, and then he leads you to the pack. And that's what we did. We went there. We caught up with a crew, and they took us around. They loved it. They seen like me hanging out of the window taking pictures of them. They're like, "Yeah, come on." They're like, "Follow us." So we
Nice.
followed them, and the cop came, and the cop was, chasing them, and they're laughing away, and I was taking pictures of all that, and they're riding wheelies, and I was like, "This is dope." And then one of the guys invited us to his house. I took pictures of him and his pad, and then they invited us on another time I went. They invited us to Mount Fuji. They rode from Tokyo to the top of Mount Fuji.
Wow.
And there was snow up there. So we went through like a nice sunny day up this mountain into the snow.
Wow.
And did some stops. And then I went back again, and a friend of mine in Sendai, which is up north, he took us to this event where there's about 500 of them. And then I went back again 2 more times, and we shot some more, later on, like 2017, 2018. And I had done a zine with my friend Brian, who does books. It's called Kill Your Idols. He did a book, a zine of the Bosoku, and he just loved the project so much. He's like, "Hey, man, can we do a book on this?" And I was like, "Yeah, if you think it'll work." Because to me, it's like once you put something out, it's out, Like nobody's going to want to see it anymore. So we put the zine out, and it sold out. And he's like, "I want to do a book of it." I was like, "Okay." And he put it together, and it came out sick, So, that's my latest drop, and it's pretty dope.
Yeah, man. I need to pick that up.
Yeah,
That's
it
cool.
came
And
out.
what I love about your work and the books that you put out, it's not just something that you shoot. I don't know, like some photographers will shoot like for a month to put
Yeah.
out a book.
These
Like,
are all 20 years
yeah,
plus. Yeah.
and yeah, for the photos can go back to 20 years, but it also um it it's photos that have lived for 20, 10, maybe 5 years, like
Yeah.
up like, so it's like a catalog that you're
Yeah,
putting out.
I think that's important with books, It's like I think that's like kind of like goes with the integrity for me. It's like the integrity of the book culture is like to have like an archive, you know. Otherwise, it's just like I have, like I went to Afghanistan for 3 days, and I shot all around in the streets in Afghanistan, and I shot in a prison in there, and I shot where the first war came through from the Russians and the Al Qaeda.
Yeah.
I shot in the valley there. It's called Panjshir Valley. So in 3 days, I have enough for 3 books of Afghanistan. But to
Wow.
me, I think it's disrespectful to the book culture. I don't know why. I just have this weird feeling. But I think it's disrespectful to the book culture to put out a book of like say I went to the prison in Afghanistan. Like I would feel weird putting out a hardcover book of one day of shooting.
Mm.
I don't know
Yeah.
why. It just is a weird thing to me. But I don't have a problem putting out a zine of that. You know, like a not a magazine, not a book, something in the middle.
Yeah.
But good quality. It still is like, you know, still printed, still paper, still good quality, but it's not quite a hardcover book that, you know, not a history book. Just a little slice of my life, you know?
Yeah.
So there's things like that that I still want to do.
If you can go back 20 years and give yourself advice, a younger version of Estevan Oriol, what would you tell him?
I would say do everything more. Like do more, uh, party more, have more fun, shoot more, go more places, do more, you know, everything more. Get more money, you know, like everything, you know, like I kind of was just like floating around, like just going with the flow kind of, and I wasn't like pushing myself like I do now. Like I would have been healthier more. I wouldn't have been a fat pig, you know, all them years. Like for years, I was just abusing myself, you know, my body just putting poison in me, you know, eating junk food, going and eating at the Hat, getting the pastrami double burger with the bottom buns like that, the top buns like that. So
Yeah.
this thing's like that with a bag of French fries,
That's living though
or
too.
right, that's what they say, right? So there's chili fries in this boat that comes up to like here.
Yeah.
So you got this burger like that, the chili fries like that, and a 40 ouncer of Coke or Orange Bang. I would say less that.
Yeah.
You know, that's the only thing I wouldn't do more of. But I was just poisoning myself, giving me. And now I have these medical issues that I suffer from. You know, I'm in pain. I have all these things, you know, up on my body and my health, and that's what I would have told myself 20 years ago. It's like eat healthier, be healthier, and be more of a savage at at you know that you love to do.
I know you have a group of creatives, including your son, creatives that are constantly around you. What advice do you give them?
I tell them there is an I in team. It's right in the middle. Like the top is the dot, and the bottom there's the I. No, I tell them. I tell them, you know, work harder than everybody else. You know, get up before them, go to bed later than them. Like just be a savage. You know, like every morning we have like a routine. We have I one of the best things I ever bought was a sauna. I put it in my backyard, and we hit the sauna every day. We hit the ice plunge you know, we do 3 cycles, 20 minutes in the sauna, 3 minutes in the ice. And we do that 3 times. And
Nice.
there's like 5 or 6 of us that go every day. And sometimes, you know, we get like people, guests and stuff, and they come, they only last one time. So, but, you know, that's how we start our morning every day. That's like our church. We go in there, you know, sweat to, you know, 175 to 200 degree weather, and then dive in freezing water,
And
and
you do that how
then
many times? Like
three
in
times.
3 times?
Yeah, 20 minutes in the heat, 3 minutes in the ice, and we do that 3 times. Then we go to work,
Wow.
go and do the warehouse work, shipping merch and stuff like that, running around errands, and working on the documentary, working on the books, working on campaigns that I'm working with different companies. So, we have a full schedule, but, it's your team that keeps pushing you. Like, even if they're, like, they say you're only as strong as your weakest link. Like, even the weakest link pushes you because you're like, you got to carry his weight,
Yeah.
or you got to be like, I'm glad I'm not, slacking like this dude. You know, it makes me go harder. If I see somebody like slacking, I'm like, oh, okay, that's how you want to do it. Cool. And I'm going to go, I have to go twice as hard, but I'm good with that. I have no problem doing that. So I like to look at like, um, David Goggins and like, you ever heard of him?
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, like I like to watch his. I like to watch this guy Dan Pena from East LA. You seen him?
No, Dan Peña, no.
He's dope.
I
He's
gotta
like
check him out.
I think he's a trillionaire or billionaire
Wow.
from East LA, and he says like being successful is like being pregnant. Nobody knows how many times you before you got to that point. And I just love like those philosophies.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. Being from Los Angeles, myself as well. um, you know, throughout grade school, they tell us go to school, do your homework, go to college, and eventually get a job, right? Entrepreneurship isn't something that they teach us, especially in the Latino community. How did you learn entrepreneurship, and where were you influenced from?
my I would say my mom was always pushing me to work hard. She pretty much didn't tell me to go to college. She was like, it's just me and my mom. My dad was doing his own thing, and he just was kind of just like cruising. My mom was like, it's just me and you. We got to get these bills paid. We were on welfare. We had Medi-Cal, food stamps, and all that. And I seen all that struggle, and I wasn't with that. I was like, all this. I'm not trying to do all this my whole life. Like, she'd get all these credit cards and pay like $10 on this one, $10 on that one, and it was always like stress. I was like, I need to do more. Make more money. More money, less problems. And I just was like, if we can get a little bit of extra and we can get a little bit ahead, my mom won't have to stress so much. So I'd go out and do side jobs and work during the summers as a kid, and I would I started like thinking of different ways to do, and I'd start flipping cars. Um, like I would buy a car for like $500, sell it for 800, go buy $800 car, sell that one for 1200. I just started learning these little things that little hustles I could do. Did some other type of hustles that weren't so great. You can get in trouble for those, but I was just like, I need to do something. And when I would help my mom out, I would see how happy she would be. Like, you just see the stress would come off of her, and I was like, man, this makes me feel good. Like, working hard, getting paid for it is a great feeling. But then if you can see how you can affect somebody else when you're helping them, that's a good feeling. So I was always like trying to help out moms, and it was cool. So I think that's where that started.
It came
As a
natural.
young kid, yeah,
Yeah, came natural to you.
yeah, because I was learning how to flip different stuff all these times, and then we took all that knowledge and started doing it with clothing and flipping T-shirts and then flipping like my photos onto like the way I would do it with the people from magazines, since I was a tour manager. the record label would send me a fax the day before and say, "Hey, this is the press for tomorrow," and there'd be like four press interviews for the band.
Yeah.
So they would say, just let the guys do it in an hour. Don't torture them. Have them doing an hour-long interviews because they still got a show to do. So we go to sound check, do an hour of press, eat dinner, chill, do the show, break down, and either stay that night in that city or go to the next city on the bus. So for four interviews in an hour, that's 15 minutes each. Well, the writer would always sit there and talk away and take up most of the interview. And I would see the photographer struggling, trying to get like, okay, this interview, this thing is like a 10-page thing for this magazine. So I need to have 10 different pictures and I have 5 minutes to do it because this was talking for 10 minutes. So they'd go and try and shoot like, okay, stand here, and get all these angles and get detail shots and do all this and that. Like, trying to knock out some classic because those pictures last forever. And I would tell the guys from the magazine, hey, if you want, I took some pictures of them on stage and backstage and like that, if you ever want to use them. And they're like, yeah, okay. But some people would be like, oh yeah, let me see them. And I had a little booklet with some photos that I made at the 1 hour photo. They're like, you took these? And I go, yeah. And they go, hey, these are pretty good, can we use them? I'd be like, yeah, sure. And they go, we'll give you $500 and for the usage fee, and you can only use them for 3 months after that, and then you can syndicate them to other magazines. So I was like, okay, wait, $500, and what was it called again? They go, usage fee. And I go, oh, okay. And then 3 months they're locked up with just your magazine, and then what happens? They go, then you can syndicate them. You can sell them to other magazines. And I was like, okay, and then what happens? And they go, well, then, after they get out of that 3 month, hold, then you can syndicate them to different countries at the same time because they're not magazines not going to be seen in that area. So I was like, okay, cool. Well, I'll do this photo shoot for this magazine, syndicate it to Japan, Germany, Australia. The people that were buying our clothes,
Wow.
they knew people at magazines in those cities. So I'd be like, hey, who's a hip hop magazine in Berlin? Who's a hip hop magazine in Sydney? And I would just start shipping my photos out to these cities and, making side money. And then I learned all the terminology from listening to them. So I'd be like, hey, what's the usage fee?
Yeah.
And how long do you guys get to hold the magazine up, those photos up?
Right.
And, I want to syndicate my photos to you. And I started like flipping that little hustle and it took off. And then I would tell the record label, because I was a tour manager, I would see everything that came through, like the video, how much the budget was, how much the director got, how much the cameraman got, how much the PA, the craft service people, everybody. I saw the whole budget. I saw how they'd come through with the treatment. I would see the album cover budget, the layout budget, the logo budget. And so when it came time to where I got good enough at photos, I'd pitch to the band first. Hey, homies, can I do the album cover? We have Little Lucky, could do the layout. We have Cartoon that could do the logo. They're like, yeah, go for it. So then I'd tell the label, they'd be like, yeah, you got this tour coming out. Hey, yeah, cool. And by the way, the guys want me, Cartoon, and Little Lucky to do the album cover packaging.
Yeah,
They're
yeah,
like,
yeah.
well, what do you mean? Well, that's what we mean. You want to talk to Muggs or be real with them, or you want to just hear it from me? Because I'll call them right now. And then, no, okay, well, let's see what we can do. And now we're getting those budgets for the photo shoot, the logo, and the layout design. And then we went to video. So then, like, now I got the budgets down, all the terminology with album packaging, and all the budgets and terminology with the video world. So now I just started putting myself out there,
Yeah.
like a little. But I didn't want to be the Sunset Boulevard. I wanted to be like the Heidi Fleiss.
Yeah,
I'm trying to get some money out of this thing.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, that's how it all entrepreneur should happen.
Yeah. No, I feel like there's a lot of, you know, young Latinos and just creatives overall looking at you, looking at what you've done with your career and your legacy and what you're doing now.
Yeah.
There's I feel like this struggle that happens with creatives, whether man, like I don't know if I should like do this full time, like balancing a full time job and then like their creative job, and they're like, should I make that leap? What advice do you have for them?
They're about 20 years too late for what I could tell them. Like, I can't tell them, okay, make a portfolio, go to the photo lab and make 80 prints that cost, $40 each. And then you make a portfolio and then go to editors of magazines and sit in their office on open interview day.
Yeah,
And hopefully you get in there to meet the editor, and hopefully they like your picture, and hopefully you get picked to be in the magazine, and then you'll get paid on those magazines. Or you can do the same with record labels, and hopefully you'll get an album cover. There's no more photo labs, there's no more magazines, and there's no more album covers, and people don't give a fuck anymore. Like, you look back at the old school album covers, people cared.
yeah,
Now they don't give a like, they'll put the worst picture. I know, like, the top rapper in the world
yeah,
has like the worst photo ever on his album
yeah,
cover.
yeah.
And it's
Shout
like,
out to Drake.
it's like the best, Grammy award winning, you know, albums,
Yeah,
but the artwork ain't. The artwork isn't,
it almost seems like the worse the album cover is,
the worst is
the
comes
better
out the
for them.
best. Yeah. I don't get that, like, I mean, to me, like, I know, like, millionaire kids that their dads want the best for them, and they would pay top prices to the best artist, the best video director, the biggest and best photographer in the world, because they would want their son to have the best shit out there. And their son goes to their homie and has them do it on an iPhone. And it's like, homie, you're a millionaire. You're going to die with millions of dollars in your bank. So why not spend some of that money and get some dope that's like classic, sick, that'll just outstand time because it's so great. And they're like, hey, I want you to do a video for me. I'm like, oh, yeah? Okay. What's the budget? Well, before we get into that, check out this video that I did myself on my iPhone. And I'm like, okay. And they show me the video. I'm like watching it, tortured. It's like somebody taking my fingernails off with a pair of pliers. And they're like, what do you think? And I go, how much did you say that was? And they said, it was free. I did it myself. I go, that's what it looked like.
Yeah.
Like, no disrespect.
You get what you pay for.
Yeah, that it looked like you did on the phone for free.
Yeah.
If you want some real, we need to get back to that part where we talk about a budget. And we use a real camera, not the one that you can buy at Best Buy with a credit card. We get the real top dog cameras. We get a cameraman. We get an editor. Not like, the kids now, they do the video. They put some filters on it, make it look like old school film. They edit it themselves on their laptop, and they put it out, and they'll do it for like, I think I saw one thing that was like $200, $500. And I'm like, you killed the game. I can't tell a kid what to do no more because there's no more money because you went and did everything for dirt cheap to where nobody can make a living at it no more. How the can you make a living? You going to do what, a music video every single day for $500 a day, 5 days a week, make $2,500 a week, 10 grand a month, killing yourself working because everybody does it for free or for cheap.
Yeah.
And they advertise it on Instagram. I can do your video. If you want lowriders, girls, effects, it costs $350. If you want it, where we shoot it with a green screen, where you have your own private jet and all this other, $500. That's the deluxe package. I'm like, damn, we couldn't do a video for less than 25 grand back in the day.
Yeah.
But we'd have 20 people on the crew, and we were shooting it with film, and you could tell the difference. You could see it,
Yeah.
you know, and you don't really see that anymore. Like the other day, I saw a video with a huge star. The video is like 180,000 with the biggest entertainer in the world, and they spent 180 grand on a video with him in it.
That's crazy.
And that blew my mind.
Because
he could have put out $1 million that
Right.
he wouldn't even know that he lost. He probably drops that out of his pocket when he gets out of the car, and could have had the movie director do that and just be like, "Hey, Francis Ford Coppola, here's $1 million. Can you do my music video for me and make it look like a cinematic and off the chain music video?" Or we give this guy, we torture him and give him the least amount of money to make this thing. And it's like, it's hard to give kids the advice or whatever, because I came from a different era.
Yeah.
And I'm having to learn how to stay relevant and stay making money, because now I have to pay for. I don't live on the couch, and my mom and dad aren't paying my bills.
Right.
So it's a different game, and people think like that I just have like, money trees in my backyard and I'm just chilling the fresh way every day, but I'm grinding from 7:30 in the morning till 12, maybe later at night.
Wow.
Every day.
Wow.
And just to, stay afloat and be comfortable. But I love it.
Yeah.
I love what I do, so
That's the beauty of it.
Yeah, that's the greatest part about it is I don't, I have to compromise, because sometimes I work with brands and companies and they want a certain way. They're like, we want Latinx, we want millennial, we want authentic, organic, and what's the other word? We want the narrative for our platform and this and that and all this, and then like they get you to where you're like, yeah, they finally one of these companies or these brands gets it. It's gonna be Latinx, which means Chicano. It's gonna be authentic, organic, and we're gonna be able to do all this cool shit with the narratives and the platforms. And then you get on the job, and they're like, you're trying to tell them like, hey, this is organic and this is authentic. We're like, we love that, but we kind of want to go with this narrative for our platform. And it's like, basically, it's like all that they wanted to do. They just wanted to have you on the team, and then they're like, what you think,
Yeah. Yeah.
So you have to learn how to just be like, okay, all right, yeah, cool. And they're like, what do you think of this? And you're like, it's great, love it, But you're just going with the flow, until you can do your own something that you love, and passion projects for you, but you're also getting paid for them. So it's a different world now from the 25, 30 years ago I started. And I don't know it all. So that's why I couldn't tell somebody what to do,
Yeah.
like, this is how you do it. This is the recipe. I'm learning every day.
Yeah, I know you have a group and like young creatives on part of your team.
Yeah.
I'm sure they learn from you and you're learning from them. I'm assuming.
Yeah, I don't know it all. I have to tell them, hey, who's this, who's that? What do these guys do? Like what's a cool hot young brand out right now? What are they doing? And then I'll look at it, and some of it I'll be like, they're like, yeah, it's hot right now. I'll be like, can I do that? Can I put myself in that, in that world?
Yeah.
And some of it just isn't me. It's not like I have a certain way I've been doing shit all my life, and some I just can't do it. Sorry, but I got to keep it old school. And then sometimes, we got to go with the flow.
Now, this next section of the program is sponsored by Verizon 5G. It's 5G built right from the network more people rely on. 5G ultra wideband is available in parts of select cities, and 5G nationwide is available in 2,700 plus cities. Speaking of 5G, I want to talk a little bit about tech. Estevan, what role would you say tech plays in your life and your career today?
I would say get some people who know better than you and that can do it, and put them on the team. That's like I can't do all that.
Yeah.
So I don't have time to learn all that. I'll go get us the work and get it to where we can, like, I could probably go and learn all that and take that time, but then I wouldn't have time to go and get all the work
Right.
and do it.
Right. That's
So
smart
like
though.
I'll go get all the work and I'll do the work, and then you do that part, you do that part, and you do that part.
and
But
I do what I do.
yeah,
Yeah.
but we're making enough money to where we can all
Break
live.
bread. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's cool. I don't want to sit there and be staring at a computer. I like to be out in the streets and seeing people, and I like seeing life, going on. And like editing a video is like watching paint dry. It's the worst, it's like that's just torture. Shout out to everybody that ever edited anything in their
Yeah.
life.
Shout out to Fred right here.
Shout out to Fred, man. God bless everybody that's like Fred, because that's just straight torture. And I don't know how they do it. Like I'm sitting there and they're like, you're like, hey, can you put that one shot in there? Take that shot out and put that shot in there. Like, yeah, no problem. They're like, click, 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 dragging it out, and they're rendering this, and then going and getting this clip and rendering that and doing this, and then putting the music to where it fits right and putting the vocals to where it fits perfect. And you're just like, man, like that half an hour just to move 2 seconds.
Or more.
Yeah, like maybe an hour to move a 2 second piece out to put another 2 second piece out, because the guy might have been closing his eyes or looking the wrong way.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
you wanted that other shot to where he's looking that way and his eyes are open. And you're like, man, I don't ever want to do that. I almost wouldn't wish that on my enemies. But I love those guys.
Yeah.
Like people are like, how come you don't edit yourself? I'm like, that, man. Those guys are their own thing. They're their own animal.
Yeah.
Like people are like, how come you don't print your own photos in your own darkroom? Don't you think that'd be cool? I go, yeah, if I had another 100 years for my life, that'd be great. But I don't. And those guys are artists themselves.
Yeah.
Like editors are artists, period. Photo guys that print photos, they're another kind of artist. There's like, it's all for the same, but everybody's their own
Right.
thing. And there's some, I'm
They
a
don't get enough
photographer.
credit.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I put all the credit every time I do something. Like the camera guy, the guy who helps me, the editor, everybody gets credit. Because it took a team to do that.
Yeah.
It might say director, me, or shot by me, but there was other people that helped that go down, and everybody gets their credit.
Now, this next section of the program is sponsored by Verizon. Verizon has partnered up with Oi Health to offer discounts and savings on telehealth services en tu idioma for customers and their families. And as you guys know, health, not just physical health, but mental health is also very important. So for this next question, I want to highlight mental health in nuestra comunidad. Esteban, what are you currently doing to take care of your mental health?
I just get it done. Like every time I see a project get finished is when I feel like less stress. Like, okay, that one's done. There goes that one. That's cool. Now we only have 20 more to do.
Yeah.
And then like as things get done and things you get accomplishments.
out.
Yeah, you're crossing them out. You're like, oh man, that's great. That felt good. Like that's cool, man. Like we did that. Like every collaboration I do, and stressful all the way up until the time of the event of the collaboration. And then you see people wearing it and it sells out, and you're like, yeah, we did that. And then it's on to the next one. But that's kind of, I mean, low riding takes away some of the stress until you get a flat tire and you have to call a flatbed at 1 in the morning, trying to find one, that's willing to come and flatbed your car for a couple $100. But up until then, it's stress relief. I have two Harleys. I just go riding those down the coast or down the freeway. That releases some stress. Working out used to be a stress reliever,
Being in the
but
sauna and all that.
yeah,
Yeah.
that for sure is a stress reliever. But it's also stressful. Like going into 200-degree weather is like shocks your body and it stresses it out. Like kind of panics it. So that's why you start busting a sweat. Then you're diving into, freezing ice, you're shocking your body again and, stresses your body out. Like, what the hell's going on? Your
Yeah.
heart's beating 100 miles an hour. But in your head, like, okay, just breathe, relax, you're not going to die. Just let the process happen and it's cool, Like every time somebody, like I seen like the most hardcore come and they jump in the ice. And these are guys that are like been in prison and been on level 4 yards and making their own fileros and
Yeah.
going in riots and they jump in this ice and they're "Whoa," flipping out. I'm like, hey homie, like come on man, you're a fucking warrior. Like
Yeah. Yeah.
kick back, just
It's
breathe it
mental.
out.
It's
Yeah,
mental.
you have to, you have to it's in the mind,
Yeah.
you have to, the same way you'd go into any other situation, you psych yourself up and you get yourself through it, is the same way you do that. But I seen like people jump out of it with no hands, like jump out of a ice cold pool with no hands
Man.
because it's so cold and like they go and they panic and they start like having like body shakes and shit like that.
Yeah.
And you just got to talk them through it. Like, hey, relax, breathe through it. Like, take a deep breath through your nose, breathe out, you got this, And some of the people like jump out and then they get back in, they're like, oh man, I couldn't take it. I go, okay, well, we're all waiting for you, As
Yeah.
soon as you get back in there and finish your 3 minutes and we can all get in and, finish the cycle. Like, oh, okay. And they get, some people get back in. You got to kind of walk people through it, or they just are like, "Fuck it, I can't do it." Like, okay, cool. No pressure. You can't judge nobody, or you know, just because they can't do something you can't do.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah. No, that's not, man. So 3 minutes in ice cold and then 20 minutes in the sauna, but you start with the sauna first?
yeah. Or if you show up late, you get to go on the ice first.
I'll
That's our
make sure
little.
to be on time.
That's our little punishment.
All right. Lastly, Esteban, we had rapid fire with Estevan Oriol. I hope you're ready for this. It's going to
Oh.
be fun. Lowriders or photography?
Photography.
Favorite Spanish word?
Some of them I can't say on here.
It's funny because as soon as I saw you smile, I was like, all
Yeah,
right.
I would say my favorite Spanish word would be tacos.
Tacos. I dig that one. Favorite oldies or mariachi?
Oldies.
What piece of tech do you use the most today?
You mean like
Like a computer, laptop,
my phone.
your phone? Yeah, your phone. Favorite Latino food dish?
It goes in and out, but the favorite one my nana used to make was sopa fideo.
Oh, sopa de fideos.
Yeah, she
Fire.
killed it with that. And then she'd make, like my nana would always make every time you ate a tortilla at her house, she made it. So she'd be there like rolling the flour ball together,
Yep.
put some flour on the wood on the cutting board, and she'd roll it out with the wooden pin and put it right on the the heater right there. It was like nobody could do it like her. That's how I felt. And she makes some sopa fideo that just have you stuck. I've had her make sopa fideo for me, or my other family members, my tias, and my cousins would get so burned out and so jealous that my tia would make me my own sopa fideo because I would come from LA to San Diego, and they were like, "Oh, mijo, we made you a pot of sopa fideo." My cousins would get so burned out that whatever wouldn't get left or get eaten, I would get to take it home. So they would try and eat it all so that I wouldn't get to take none home. And they
Wow.
would eat like 4 bowls and get sick and throw up. So I'm like, you did all that. You wasted all that just so I couldn't take some home. Like, you're scandalous, man. But, that's how good it was.
Yeah. Oh, I love that you said sopa de fideo and not like enchiladas or something
Yeah.
like that's like super homemade. You can't just go to like a restaurant and be like, I'll have your sopa de fideo. That's
It's
like something
hard.
you have at home.
Yeah, it's so hard to find. It's really hard. And then there's restaurants that carry it, and then they discontinue it because they're like, it wasn't the most popular dish on the menu. I go, but it was one of your best.
Yeah.
That's for sure.
Best song to play at a Latino party or at a kickback.
Um, it depends if it's a Latino, Latina, or Latinx. um, you know, there's all kinds of songs. There's like the
What's your go-to?
um, if you're with the homies and stuff, it's always like oldies and funk. If it's like I used to always go to like the real like you know lat Latinx parties, and they're like they'd play like Camarón Pelao or La Chona or something like
Yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah,
Some of
yeah.
those like upbeat, fun songs, and then like they'd even like to play like some classic rock, or there's always a old soul, like you'd always go to like these parties and you'd hear like Cold Blooded, James Brown, Rick James, or you'd hear some like like Parliament or funk or Earth, Wind and Fire or
Yeah.
Marvin Gaye, like you'd hear that kind of soul, you'd hear oldies, you'd hear rock, you'd hear you know banda music, you'd hear the norteño music. Like that's one thing about uh, the Latinx culture is that they listen to like everything, and hip hop, everything. It's like those parties are there. You're always gonna have fun going to one of those parties.
Yeah.
The food was gonna be bomb. The music was gonna be good. It might there's always enough alcohol, and there might be some drama at the end. That's
There's
like
always drama at the
it
end.
makes a good story.
Yeah.
All that makes a good story. So all that was all good for me.
I love it. Last one. What's a nickname that no one really knows about
For who?
for you?
Oh, for me? Um, well, I don't know if they're nicknames or just my names that people call me, Like like there's different like my name is like hard to say to some people. So it's either like it has Estevan or Esteban or Esteban with a B,
Yeah.
because in Mexico it's more with a B.
BAN. Yeah.
Yeah, just like barrio and barrio, it's the same type of thing. And then there's like I had some black homies that their parents would call me Stavon or Stefan or Stavion. They go Stavon, they,
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
hey, you gonna stay and eat with us? And we'll be, yeah, yeah, yeah. I didn't even bother correcting them,
Yeah.
Just be like, yeah, just go with it. Then I have the white homies. They call me Steve,
Steve.
and then because my last name started with a O,
Yeah.
they call me Steve O.
Steve O.
But when I was a young kid, um, they would Estevan is Estevan, so they would just call me Estes, Estes, and I even went by that in school for a while.
Estes?
Yeah, Estes. I don't know why, but somehow that I looked through some of my old papers that I do at school and like some old artwork.
And you were like Doodle Estes?
No, they would be that at the top of the paper. You know, they say write your name on the top corner and the date on the other corner.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So,
You would write that at the top of your
that was my
assignment.
name in school.
Yeah.
So I trip out on that, and I say that's about it. You know, did like 20 different ways to say my name.
Well, Estes, thank you so much, man, for coming by to Mando and Friends. We appreciate you. Estevan Oriol, Mando Fresco, thank you again, man. I really, really appreciate you. And thank you so much for listening and watching Mando and Friends presented by Verizon.